Okay, today we're going to be looking at graphs of rational functions and how to graph these things. So to graph, you first want to find the domain. It's from finding the domain, you'll then be able to find the vertical asymptotes. The holes. The horizontal asymptote. And then once you put those on there, you'll be able to do and complete the graph by completing a t-chart. Let's look at the first one. Start with very basic. Our first one is the domain. It has all real numbers. X cannot equal -3. Already factored and simplified, so our vertical asymptote is at x equal -3. So let's put that on our graph. Holes, there are no holes. And our horizontal asymptote is at y equal 0. Let's put that on our graph. That's y equals 0. This is x equal -3. Now we want to do a t-chart. We want to pick 2 points to the left of our vertical asymptote. So I am going to pick -4 and -5. And put it down, let's put that into our function. So that's 1 over -4 plus 3 is -1. So that's going to equal a -1. I substitute a -5 and I'll come out with a -1/2. So let's plot those points. -4, -1, -5, 1/2. And there's the first branch of our rational function. Now I'm going to pick 2 points on the other side of the vertical asymptote. So I'm going to pick -2 and -1. Substitute -2 in, I will get a +1. I substitute -1 in, I get a +1/2. -2, 1, -1, 1/2. And then we are done. All right, let's look at another one. I'm going to start with our domain. Again, will be all real numbers. X not equal to -1. It's factored and simplified, so we have a vertical asymptote at x equal -1. Put that on there. Holes, there are no holes. And then our horizontal asymptote will be y equal 2 over 1. So our horizontal asymptote is at y equal 2. So this is y equal 2, and this is x equal -1. So again, now I'm going to start my t-chart. I'm going to plug in 2 values to the left of the vertical asymptotes. I'm going to pick -2 and -3. Substitute those in, and if I substitute -2 into the function, I'm going to end up with 1. If I substitute -3 into the function, I'm going to get 1.5, or 3/2. Okay, so -2, 1. -3, 1.5, or 1.5. And that's that branch. Now I'm going to go to the right of the vertical asymptote, and I'm going to pick the points, 2 points to the right. I'm going to pick 0 and 1. If I pick 0, I get 3, and with 1, I substitute it in, I get 5/2, which is 2.5. So I'm at 0, 3, and 1 and 2.5. And we are done. Now let's look at one that needs to be factored. Okay, so first step I want to do is I want to factor my function. So f of x, I'm going to go ahead and factor this. Factors to x plus 2, x plus 2, over x plus 2, x minus 2, and it will simplify to x plus 2 over x minus 2. So our domain, all real numbers, except x cannot equal -2 and x cannot equal 2. Our vertical asymptote, we look at our simplified form, and our vertical asymptote will be at x equal 2. Let's put that on our graph. There will be a hole because we have another excluded value at -2. So I'm going to substitute -2 into my simplified version, and I get a hole at 2, -2, 0. So I look at -2, 0, and there's a hole. So I draw it. Draw a hole there. My horizontal asymptote is y equal 1. Put that on my graph. Now we're going back to our t-chart. Go ahead and substitute it into the simplified version. I'm going to pick 2 points to the left of my horizontal vertical asymptote, 2 to the right, so I'm going to 1 and 0. When I substitute 1 into the simplified, I get a -3. And when I substitute 0 in, I'm going to get a -1. Draw my graph. Okay, so now it just touches the hole and then passes right on by. Okay, that's where a hole is. All right, now we want to pick points on the other side. I'm going to pick 3 and 4. You can pick any values that you want, but I decided just 3 and 4 would be the easiest for me. When I substitute 3 into the function, I get a 5. When I substitute 4 into the function, a 3. So I'm going to plot 3, 5, and then it's 4, 3, and I have a graph that looks like this. Last one. Again, what you want to do first is factor it. So I'm going to factor this function. The numerator is not factorable. Denominator factors to x plus 1, x minus 1. I have a domain, all real numbers. X cannot equal -1 and x cannot equal 1. Since it's simplified, that means I have 2 vertical asymptotes. I have a vertical asymptote at x equal -1, and I have a vertical asymptote at x equal 1. Holes, there are none. Horizontal asymptote is at y equal 1. Notice this time my graph is divided into 3 pieces. There's this, there's the center, and then the outside. So what I need to do is I need to do 3 pieces of a t-chart then. I need to do 3 pieces of the t-chart. I'm going to start first with the left. And I'm going to choose -2 and -3. And I get approximately, when I enter -2 into my function, comes out to 4/3 or 1.3. When I enter in a -3, I get 9/8, which is about a 1.8. So at -2, I have a 1.3, and 3, I have a 1.8, so it's really close, and it's going to curve like this. Now let's go to the middle. The middle is a little more different, a little more challenging, because I have to figure out how it's going to curve. So I'm going to start with 0 first, and at 0, it's going to end up being 0. Let me substitute it in. Now, that's not going to help me figure out which direction or where my graph is curving, so I have to plug in fractions now. So I'm going to take a 1/2 and a -1/2. When I substitute a -1/2, I get a -1/3. When I substitute a +1/2, I get also a -1/3. So it's like a parabola. It's going to open down like this. Now we have to go and finish up, because we have one more section of the T-chart of my graph to do. So I'm going to choose the points 2 and 3. When I choose 2, I get 4/3, which is approximately 1.3. And when I choose 3, I get 9/8, which is approximately 1.8 again. So it's 2, 1.3, 3, 1.8. So this is going to graph like